Hello, welcome to History in Lowell. It's been a while, so let me introduce myself. I'm Maritza Grooms, and I'm joined by my personal professor and my buddy, Bob Forrant. How you doing, Bob?
I'm well. Nice to see you. We've been on what they call in Hollywood hiatus.
Yeah,
a
we
summer
took
hiatus.
a season break, right?
Yeah. But we knew we were renewed, so we knew we were coming back. So
got it.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to be back in the studio with you. You've created a gift for not just yourself, but for the rest of us that is a kind of a culmination of everything that you've worked on over the last 31 years. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah. So I with several other people, created something called a People's Map of Lowell. And it basically is a map of the city of Lowell, the river, everything about the city, the canals, streets. It's very noted. When you look at it, you'll know you're looking at the city of Lowell, and at various points around the city, there are markers on the map and a couple, 2 or 3 sentences about that particular spot in the overall history of the city. So it's really starting back with Native Americans before Lowell is Lowell and coming pretty far up to the present day. And it's been off and on about 3 years in the making.
Wow.
From the idea, there was a map, a similar map was created in Lawrence a few years ago. And I worked on that and helped out on the history of Lawrence for that map. And then all the while I was thinking, well, I wonder if we could do one for Lowell. And the people that are working behind the scenes to make the maps also have done a People's History of Boston, a book. And in that one, they also stretched Boston a bit to cover Lawrence and Lowell, and I contributed chapters in that about Lawrence and Lowell. And then I said to them, could we do a Lowell map? And they said, sure. And so off and running we went.
I feel like people let you do pretty much whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, this was really something that was exciting to me to try to think about how to pull together, and as well, again, try to say, well, you and I have done so many stories over the years about an important spot in the city, like St. Anne's Church and the Underground Railroad, or St. Paul's Church and the Amistad, or Mechanics Hall across the way, or whatever it might be. And so in my head, I knew all these places, but how do we put them all like in one visual? And so I think it came out really well. And we made 750 of them.
Wow.
And we got them back from the printer in mid-June, and we only have about 100 left.
And so you've distributed them widely in Lowell.
Mm-hmm.
So where are they? Where are they living besides one in my house?
So they're living, so the teachers union in Lowell took a bunch of them and helped to get them distributed to teachers and into all the school buildings in the city, which I'm really grateful for, because I love to think that young people will come into their classroom or in the hallway or wherever it's going to be put up and see this visual representation, of the history of Lowell and of the history of immigration and resistance to slavery and all these other things, again, that we've talked about. So that really, I think more than anything else, that's what made me the most happy.
Yeah.
When the Lowell Teachers Union sort of stepped up and said they would take they took a really big slice of them. Also gave a bunch of them to Mill City Grows.
Nice.
Mill City Grows is one of the really featured actors on the map. And they had them all summer, and so they were giving them out and giving them away, when they were doing the various food distributions around the city. Lowell Community Health Center got a bunch. Boys and Girls Club, any place I could think of. And then we also, and they're free, by the way. And so then I talked to Andy Jacobs at Brewed Awakening, and they'd have a bunch, and so when I started on social media saying they're available, basically said Lala Books and Brewed Awakening would have them if you wanted to go in and ask for one, they would have them for you.
That's all, and they're free and available. That's what you do. You take everything you know and you make it available. And I think that's one of the most wonderful things about you, but it's also how you make such an impact, because I can just imagine if I was a kid walking into a school and I saw that map of where I lived, I'd be so curious. And I just know from my past working with youth that a lot of these young people don't know about the place that they're from. But this is, you never know. Now maybe you might inspire some budding historians.
Oh no, that'd be fabulous. If if I lived another 30 years and somebody was graduating college and saying, I became a history major because of that map, that would be like, okay. I'll take that. The interesting thing in doing it was to try to figure out like what to put on the map.
Yeah. How do you even decide? Where do you even start?
Yeah, because there's more. I mean, you couldn't put everything on the map because then it would be a book. It wouldn't be a map. And so somebody actually suggested, well, why don't you take all of this and write a book? And I said, yeah, give me something else to do. So it started out with me I made a list of maybe like 140 or 150 people, places, things.
Wow.
And then took that list and sent it to about 20 people. Sent it to you, and you commented, and other people. So it was a while ago, it was maybe 2 years ago. And I said, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Of all of these things, mark off the ones you think are essential to being on the map. And, sent it to like various, like the Africa Community Center and Latinx Community Center, like people that we've had on the show, who know their own particular communities. What of your history would you like to see on the map? And did all of that, got everything back. That big list went to about half the size, but it was still too much. So I think at that point it was maybe 75 or 80 places. And then comfortably we needed to get it down to around 35.
Oh my gosh.
And so I sent that list back out to a smaller group of people and said, okay, of these, what do you think? Got it down to what became a manageable list, and then had to figure out how, if I knew like 8 pages of stuff about a site, like how do I make one sentence? How do I turn that into 2 sentences to fit it on the map?
Oh my gosh.
And so that was an interesting part of the process. And then writing, so there's about a 250-word essay on 200-year history of Lowell on the map. So I had to figure out how to like take the history of the city and put it in a little box in one corner of the map so that would fit. And then there's a really talented, really like artist, Kate Delaney, who lives in Lawrence and does incredible artwork. She's an amazing, really like clever and just captures stuff really brilliantly. And so I had her come with me one day and walk around Lowell.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, here's some different sites I'm thinking would be really good to put on the map.
Wow, what a beautiful process.
And so we walked around, we had lunch, we walked around City Hall, we walked, around the canals, we looked at a bunch of different things. We went over and looked at like a Mill City Grows area of the city. And so then, and we thought about like the abolitionist, the anti-slavery history of the city with Frederick Douglass and the Liberator and the Voice of Industry and Douglass's newspaper. So when you look at the map, she did a caricature of 3 people like sitting on a bench reading newspapers, and they were all reading those papers, and you can tell what it is. So that became one of the pieces. There was a really interesting strike in the city in 1933 that ended up in, at one point, like gunfire and this incredible melee on Bridge Street.
Yep.
And
we talked. It's one of my favorites, but
yeah, and we talked about that. We talked about that on the show as well.
Yeah.
And so I went over with her to the bridge, and then when you look at the map, she drew it's like you look at it, it's like, oh my God, it's like she was there. And she has the faces of all these workers and their signs and what they're protesting, and you can see the Green Bridge over the shoulder and Mass Mills on over the shoulder of some. I mean, it's just really, each of the pieces of art on the map could stand alone to be posters.
Wow.
I mean, it's that, and they did one of Mill City Grows. There's one of sort of like a panoramic view of the city that's sort of situated where the Concord and the Merrimack come together, which is one of my favorite spots, which I can kind of see from my back porch living in Centerville on the hill. Yeah, and so there's 5 original pieces of art around the edges of the map, and then all the spots on the map, and it's very like, it's like an old school map, like not on your phone. You know, it's like there's a number 1, and there's number 1 in a location.
Yes.
And
so
you see a little bit about it, and you look and see
cartography.
where it is. And you have to actually orient yourself.
That is incredible.
So yeah, it was pretty fun to do.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. And like when you're talking about the artwork, it takes a really special person with a good set of eyes to be able to translate all of this, like what you see today, the history of it, and then to be able to put it on the map. Yeah, that is incredible.
Yeah. And we had a map maker, cartographer, I think he likes to be called, anyway, who teaches at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. And so he did the Lawrence map, the grid for the Lawrence map, and so he agreed to do the one for Lowell. They're actually now the team of like Kate and the cartographer and everybody else did the Boston book and whatnot. They're all now working on a map on Chinatown.
Nice.
In Boston.
Oh my gosh.
As a 3rd map, and then they're also going to be doing one on East Boston.
Wow.
As a 4th. And so what started out to be a Lawrence map is now coming along to be this whole series of maps. And the other thing which is really great is like at the Boston Public Library, there's like one of these renowned world map centers called the Lilienthal Map Center. It's like an archive of maps from like all over in history in the world.
We're going to have to take a note of that.
This map is now in the Lilienthal Map Center. And you can go to their website and do a Lowell map, and up it will pop on, like a visual representation of it will
Did you ever
pop
think
up on
that
the
like
screen.
all of your teaching of history then would be culminated in a record of history?
No, I mean, I'm not like, it took the sets of skills of the various people that, you know, that had the background in making the maps and things, because it wouldn't have been what I would have thought about. Like, could we make, absent the Lawrence map, I don't think I would have said, oh, I wonder if we could make a Lowell map. I don't think it would have come up. But working on helping on the Greater Boston book, the people's history of Boston and all of that, it gave me, that's where really the seed came from.
Yeah.
And then I think it sort of, it just, yeah, but like I say, it was at least 3 years of thinking about it, honing the list down, trying to figure out, and again, the idea was, okay, what's thematically from the show as well, what doesn't get covered, what's not typically the story. So there's a lot of Native American history sites on the map, because that's a history that's increasingly being covered but wasn't. And now, like places where we've done, you know, again, that we've talked about on the program with Professor Strobel, who's an expert on Native American history of the Valley, right? So there are a number of sites on the map indicating where Native, you know, where like behind Middlesex Community College, which was a meetup place for Native peoples back in the 15th, 16th century.
Yeah, they would do trading, fishing.
Yeah, the burial site, where the burial site was discovered, where North Campus of the university is. And there's there's an indicator on the map of where that is. The other thing that we did is highlight parks and green spaces in the city. So it's very noticeable when you look at the map with the Esplanade and the walkway along the Merrimack, that green space, North and South Common. It's very clear where those places are. Marker for the library, trying to think of other things. Bertie Marbury, who we've talked about, first black woman running for any office in the city, we have a marker where her office was, which was firebombed during her campaign, because that's usually, again, missing, not talked about.
Yep.
That's on the map. So it was Jack Kerouac's birthplace. Had to make it onto the map for sure.
It wouldn't be a Lowell map, right?
Yeah. Where the CBA offices are. The CBA, I should have mentioned, CBA took a bunch of maps. The CBA actually framed one and auctioned it off at their annual gala fundraiser.
I love that.
And in June, which was really, the map came out just in time.
Wow.
For them to be able to have it bid on auction. And somebody, I forget, but it was a pretty high number, somebody bid on it to get it.
That's
and
awesome.
take it away in a frame. So, yeah, so part of my summer has been restocking. When Lala runs out, like, Laura will call me and say, can you bring some more maps by?
And you only have so many left.
Yeah, we're going to run out. We've actually talked about reprinting, but I don't think we will.
Yeah.
I just think, it was funny because when they were printed, there were 750 of them, and they were each in these big boxes, because the map is 3 feet by 2 feet. So, and then they were each in 125 to a box.
Wow.
Came to my house in 6 boxes, which were huge because the boxes were quite a bit bigger than each of the sets of maps. And they were all, I have a stairway in my front room that sort of an open stairway, and I had them against the back wall and open stairway, thinking these boxes are going to be here forever. And then once I started letting people know the map was available, and people said, oh, give me some, I'll take some.
Yeah.
Like Gordon Hom from the Africa Community Center wanted a bunch right away, and so I had to bring some over to Gordon. So the other thing that was interesting as I started doing it, it was so many of the people that we've had as guests were the exact places where then people said, can I have a bunch of maps?
See?
Yeah, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I dropped a bunch off at the Pollard Library, so they have some there. The Center for Lowell History. I brought a bunch to school, and they're slowly disappearing.
Oh, I love
More will disappear when students come back.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been saving the last box, and so I need to, next week when school starts again, bring a bunch over. But then I figure I want to save a bunch for after I retire, and technically retire, I guess, that I can take to events where, like if I'm invited to give a talk somewhere, I can bring a map to give to whoever invited me to give like as a gift kind of a thing. So I don't want to give them all away. I want to keep some of them. I actually haven't even framed one myself yet.
Okay, you get it. So that's the first step.
Yeah, so there's one hanging in the history department, but not in my office, because I felt creepy, like hanging my own thing up in my own office.
Yeah.
It seemed weird. So it's hanging in a main hallway in the history department. I'm trying to think of the other sort of highlights on there. Definitely the 1933 strike, 1912 strike, where there was a lot of activity on Merrimack Street, a lot of marches, after the Bread and Roses strike, there was a big strike in Lowell, but because people were exhausted, I think, in a way, by the strike in Lawrence, the strike in Lowell has never really gotten its due, but it was also significant in its own way, and it paralyzed the mills for several weeks. And so that's featured on the map as well. The birthplaces of several people in the city in history who went on to be involved in like women's voting rights and things like that. So yeah, I think there's 38 or 39 things that made it in the end.
And I just keep thinking, like, out of 150, and that probably wasn't even like the most extensive list that you could have made, like, it's so difficult. And we've talked about this too, just as people who love and study history. It's so hard to pick out the pieces that you want to teach or that you want to present, because it's like, yeah, but you got to know the context. You got to know why this thing even precipitated the way that it did. And then to just have to condense it all into just a couple of sentences, that feels insane to me.
Yeah, no, that was really, that part of it was the real, because I like to write, and so thinking, oh God, I have to describe Bertie Marbury and what happened to her in like 20 words.
Yeah, how do you do that?
And how do I do that in such a way that then makes people be curious?
And honors the history.
Right, all at the same time. And so it was and again, like 250 or 300 words. Here's the history of Lowell.
Oh my gosh.
200 years of Lowell history in 200 words or whatever it was, 240 words, I think, something like that. But yeah, but it also helped me actually to think about, again, it was interesting because I didn't make a connection initially. Okay, the map in a way is the summation of a lot of what I've learned from teaching over the years. But in the end, it helped me actually think about, well, I've really learned a lot. I've actually learned a lot of stuff that when I came here 31 years ago to teach at the university and live in the city for over 20 years, I didn't know much of anything about the city. And it made me realize actually I have paid attention. And the other thing that was interesting was how much research actually people had done, but it just never been made more public. There was a labor historian who taught here before me, Mary Blewett, who was an excellent, incredible historian and did amazing work and wrote this history of labor in New England called Constant Turmoil, which is an incredible book, and did oral history. She did a book called The Last Generation, where she did oral histories with a lot of people that had worked in the textile mills before they closed, and she captured their stories. And so using all of that, which just, again, sort of standing, I think historians, we need to be more careful, I think, to credit the people came before, because it's almost never that you're on a completely blank slate.
Right.
You're pretty much, there's a trail somebody has left, and they've basically not been able to finish the grander palette, right? And so I feel like that. I mean, I'm working now on a project, hopefully at some point we'll be able to show the panels. I'm working on a project with the Merrimack Valley Central Labor Council to do an exhibit on the history of labor in Lowell.
Oh my gosh,
Which is, again, I hadn't thought that much about it, but it's another summative kind of a thing in a way. And I've been working on that all summer with Elizabeth Pellerito, who's another faculty member at the university, and a design student who's also working on it as well. First name is Madeline. And so she's going to design it, but that too picks up a lot of these threads, and I have more words because it's on an exhibit. And so we're doing the 1912 strike, the 1933 strike. We're also doing women workers in World War II in Lowell, and the women workers who made parachutes.
Yes.
And so that's like one of the panels is just going to be that.
That is so
that
cool.
story. I'm actually finishing up the writing of that one now.
Oh, it'd be really cool if we had one of those old parachutes, huh?
Yeah. I actually, like a few years ago when I first learned that many parachutes were being made in the city, I went online. I went on like eBay and other places, and there was one for sale in a pack. So when they were finished in Lowell, they then were packed in these packs that were about this big, and you put them on. Right?
Yeah.
And everything was for sale. And I thought this would be a really cool show and tell.
Yeah.
Like if I go, like for second graders or college students, whatever. Yeah. And I didn't do it. And then I went back like a few weeks later because I was beating myself up that I didn't do it, and it was gone. And because it would have been a quite nice artifact.
Yeah.
But in the process of doing the research, I found some are in the Center of Lowell History and some are in the National Park, which has a pretty cool archive of photos of the inside of the parachute factories. And so the exhibit will have some photos that people have never seen before. I found some buttons that workers had to wear to get into the factory, and they all had like a badge. They had a picture, their picture, and not their name though, a number.
Of course.
And so I'm trying to figure out how to use social media. And I found the other day that people have done this before, where people in their attic have found like their grandmother's button from when she worked in one of the parachute factories, of which there were a few in the city. And, you know, I'm trying to like reconnect with those people and see if I can put names to the images on the buttons, because that would be a really interesting thing to do when we're shooting to have a big public event for the exhibit, like a grand opening of the exhibit in late October.
Oh, good to know.
So yeah, I'll keep everybody posted because we want to have like a crowd.
Oh yeah, well, count me in.
Yeah, no. But again, it seems like it's one of these things that's like pulling together all this stuff that's in my head, from Mill Girls to Rosie the Riveter to the parachute workers to the strike and the bloodshed on Bridge Street. It's like all going to be in this exhibit.
Oh my
It'll
gosh.
be really neat.
Bob, we're really just so lucky to have you, because even as you're talking about the projects that you're currently working on, you uplift the people who are working on it with you. Always, you give credit where it's due. You definitely acknowledge that research is a team project, right? It's collaborative research built on years and years, and then you make sure that the people who are forgotten and left out, whether it's the research, the story, or whatever is happening, you make sure those people are brought forward, and you do your best. Even in this parachute conversation, like, you're trying to make sure that we get those names.
Yep, got to have those names. Got to have those names.
And that's what's, I hope that the rest of us can take a lesson from you. I know I have several lessons, and I continue to learn from you, and that's why you're my personal professor.
Yeah.
But that we always have to think about who's not here, what story's not being told, and who needs to be uplifted, because these stories may have been told in some other form, right? And you've also taught me that just because we don't know the story doesn't mean that somebody else hasn't told it.
Yeah, I mean, there's an article that I use in my classes sometimes, and the subtitle of it is Symbolic Annihilation. Ooh. And it talks about what happens when you're not in the archive, what happens when you're not included in the history. And the author, I forget her first name, shame on me, the last name is Caswell, I remember that, thankfully. It's a really quite astonishingly provocative piece, and she says we do a disservice when we don't rummage our attic and find stories that are missing and put them in the archive. The idea now of taking certain things out of the Smithsonian museums, the idea of looking at exhibits in national parks and historic sites for words that might offend, and sort of cleansing history that might shed a negative light on something that happened in our past. Obviously, that's not what I do, but I'm trying to do the opposite. But it shows the importance of collecting and trying to stop that from happening. And then every once in a while, something like this happens where let's purge the archive of these things. No, that's not what we should be doing. We have to be learning from all aspects, all facets of the history, not just the things that make us happy.
Oh, and that is so beautifully said, and a wonderful note to end on, because that's what we do here, right? We are trying to battle the bigger powers by at least telling the stories of our local space and some stories on the national stage. But the fact that this map is made, it's going to ensure, and being in an archive, right, it's going to ensure that generations to come can at least start to learn about the history of where they're from, and maybe other people will start to learn about Lowell's history. And we're going to continue to talk about history in Lowell. Thank you, Bob.
Even when I retire.
Even when you retire, we better.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for all of your contributions, but specifically this map. I'm so excited to really dig into it myself. But thank you, Bob, and thank you all for tuning in. This has been History in Lowell.